What's happening in Granbury? Today, we're going to take a look at the exciting conversation circulating around data centers. Data centers is all the hype going on in Glen Rose. Here in Granbury, there are several different projects that are being proposed, and there's a lot of concern by a lot of the locals here in Granbury. So we figured it's time for us to do an episode of this and discuss here on what's happening in Granbury. So stay tuned. We're going to jump into that right now. If this is your first time visiting what's happening in Granbury, we really appreciate you tuning in, and we hope that you find all this information helpful. If you don't know, we are a local business owner. We actually own a real estate brokerage here in Granbury, and we're trying to cover some of the local news that affects our day-to-day lives here in the Granbury area. So today we're going to be looking at data centers. We might be looking at other things in the future, developments and stuff like that. If you have any questions, if you're interested in finding out what your property is worth, or if there's anything real estate related that you need help with, we're local, we're here, we would love to help. But without further ado, let's jump into data centers. So there's a huge one that's being proposed in Tolar. It's in Hood County, and we're actually going to pull up on the map and show you where it is. And then we're going to drive out there. We're going to do some drone shots. We're going to kind of get a feel for what this location looks like on the ground, and maybe give you some information that you haven't seen before. So we're going to drive out there. I'm even going to pull the camera up when we get into Tolar so you can kind of see how we navigate back to this area. And we're going to try to put some information together. So there's a lot going on, and it's hard to really condense it down to know exactly where everything stands. So what I'm going to do to start with, I'm going to share my screen with you. So let's start with where it's located. Today we're going to focus primarily on the big project in Hood County. So there's another one in Somerville, and there's actually a couple of others. There's an Amazon data center that they're talking about, as well as the Fort Spunky, which is another one. And then there's another one that is in conversations near Pecan Plantation. So there's like 4 or 5 different projects that are all being discussed at the moment. Today, we're just going to focus on this one because we can use these details to then fill out the rest. So we will do a future video, a follow-up. We will highlight the one in Somerville, we'll highlight the others in Hood, and we'll try to fill out this data center. But this will be a good start. So this is where it's located. If you were looking at Granbury, you're going to be, around, this area. So you'll go down to Tolar, and then you will go down, I think that's Hill City Road, and then you'll be at this particular location on Paluxy Highway. So what is going on? What's the big concern? From my perspective, the biggest concern with these data centers is going to be the water. Water is a limited commodity. We do not want to disrupt the natural source of water for all of the residents. So that is, I think, the big concern. The question is, what can they do in order to provide a water system? So let's go over a few things here. So this is the Comanche Circle Sailfish Investments. It's a 2,600 acre development, 2,600 acres proposed near Tolar and the Paluxy River Valley. And at full build out, it could require up to 5 gigawatts of power. It'll have 45 warehouse-sized server buildings and a footprint of a rough equivalent of like 100 Walmarts. So that gives you some perspective on just the immensity of this data center. There's also the Amazon one and the Fort Spunky, like we mentioned, but we're just going to focus here on that one because that is the biggest one from what I've found. That is by far and away the largest. All right, so there was a vote that just happened in Granbury, February 2026, just a week or so ago. And Hood County Commissioners, they held a marathon town hall. It was packed, hundreds of people, and they were looking for a 6-month moratorium on large-scale industrial developments. Despite how all the locals felt about it, the court narrowly rejected the moratorium twice and in 3-2 votes. Now, there are reasons for this. Some people jump straight to conclusions that these folk are, they're getting paid. This video, I am not going to take a hard stance on either side. I'm just trying to purport the major concerns, the concerns that I have, without being too biased either way. I'm trying to help just give you all the information. So there is an issue that came out where the Attorney General intervened into some local authorities. And basically, so I think it was Senator Betancourt and Representative Jared Patterson explicitly warned county commissioners that passing a moratorium would be illegal. They argued that under the laws like House Bill 2559, to regulate municipal buildings, moratoriums, counties do not have the constitutional authority to halt development. All right, so there are some state pressures being exerted on these commissioners. And so from what I've understood is they've appealed to the Attorney General to, as Ken Paxton, they're asking him to interpret if the county has the authority to do this, and then maybe get Abbott, the governor, to step in and try to create some guardrails around data centers. So there was some legalities that made it difficult for them to vote for this 6-month moratorium. And so if you were to think about this situation, I would say that it would be akin to living in Midland, Odessa 100 years ago and being in a position where all the oil guys are coming out to the Permian Basin and they're trying to do all these investments. If you live, next to some of these oil wells or some of this oil work, it was probably not a positive thing from your estimation when you were there. However, there was nothing in the world you could do to stop it. It was coming. Now there are certain rights that people have right away, and they had to go in and do some things in the city. But overall, the oil came because there was just too much money and too much need for the oil for anyone to stop it. It was necessary for the country, and it was inevitable. There was no stopping what was going to happen in Midland, Odessa. That doesn't mean that there was no stopping this individual oil well that someone went and fought against and able to get it, turned down. So I'm not saying that we cannot stop any of the data centers, but I am saying that Texas is about to be full of data centers just because of the sheer immensity of the landmass, and because these data centers are going to be absolutely crucial for national security and for moving into the future in the next 10 years. This is going to be the next oil. So it's going to be hugely important to the country and to the future of the country and what we're doing to have these data centers. So does that mean I want one in my backyard? Absolutely not. I don't want one in my backyard. I wouldn't want to wake up and see that. However, I understand that there's also a reality that we're going to have to come to terms with, that these things are coming. There is no stopping data centers in general. We might be able to stop this one. It's 2,600 acres. We might be able to stop the one in Somerville County, but they are coming. They are inevitable. Unless something happens and AI is completely shut down, it's coming. It's going to happen. So the question is, how can we protect ourselves from these things coming in and using up all of our water or our energy or creating health hazards? There's got to be some, in the legislature, a move to protect the citizens so that we don't build these things too fast and create some serious problems on our grid or in our infrastructure and disrupt, millions of people's lives that have these things built around them. So I acknowledge that there are some difficult questions and some difficult paths that the senators and the people and the politicians are going to have to think through. Unfortunately, most of the politicians are highly incompetent and unable to really evaluate the best course of action. And that's just a situation we're in as well. So I am very happy to see a lot of the locals coming in, standing up and protesting what's going on. I hope that drawing these attentions to that we can help, give some ideas to implement a better course of action that will protect primarily our water resources. So without further ado, let's move to the main concern that we have is the water. So this is the most critical concern. Hyperscale data centers require evaporative cooling, and these towers can consume up to 1 million gallons of water a day. The residents fear this will devastate the Upper Trinity Aquifer and the Paluxy River watershed, and it may even cause issues with drinking water. That's part of the concern. So the question is, what are we going to do? What are they going to do about water? How can they create their own water systems that they can use? Are there efficiencies that they need to look at? If they need that much water, would it make more sense for them to be focusing on areas like Alaska, where it's a lot colder? Is there possibilities that they could utilize like more salt water and get near some cold areas near the sea? I mean, there may be some questions like that need to be asked and answered. Right now, they're going to have agreements with different companies. So they put in a request for AMUD. They were asking for, I think it was 100,000 gallons a day. And I believe AMUD just in the last few days rejected that and said no. So I don't know that for a fact. That was based on some stuff that I saw circulating, and I kind of made a little tab of it, but I haven't verified it to be 100% truth yet. But it seems like that's the likely case. So in addition to water, there's also the question of power. What about power? So the issue with power will be if they come in and use as much energy, 5 gigawatts, I mean, we're talking about some serious power issues. The difference between power and water is I think they probably could handle that. I think they could generate some solar, put in some wind turbines, get an agreement with maybe the nuclear power plant in Glen Rose, have some agreements for power provision, and they could probably power the system pretty well. I think, if they go in and spend, $50 to $100 million on power, then they can probably do that. The thing is, you can't generate water. That's the thing. It's not a commodity that you can just easily generate or generate more of. You've got to pull from these natural resources. And again, that's why it's the most critical concern. There is also concern of degradation of the environment. There's been a lot of people that hate the Bitcoin facility because of the noise. Some people complain about radiation and have all of these different concerns with it. Without going too far afield into the health hazards, because those are hard to determine. What the real science says on it, I'm not sure. So I'm not saying they're good or bad from that standpoint. Obviously, they're going to be bad to a degree. Everything, that you're doing industrial is going to have some negative impacts. So if you've got the power plant, is there any negative impact that it's bringing to the environment? If you've got paper mills, is there any impact that they're having on the environment? Vehicles or whatever. I don't know the level of impact that these things have, and I don't know how to research it too well. I acknowledge that there are some studies out there that say that they're bad, and then there's studies that say that they're not bad, and I don't know if they're biased or not. The studies that are saying that they're not bad, are they being provided, or are they being paid by the companies that are building these facilities to say that they're not bad? So you have all these questions that I don't have time to go in and research out completely. So I'm going to kind of stay out of the health concern. But there is people that are worried about, the overall integrity of the health of the citizens here, and there's also the nature and destroying the beautiful Paluxy Valley and the river, and being out here in more of a rural aesthetic area that's going to begin to be changed dramatically when we have something equivalent of 100 Walmarts going in Hood County. So going back to the power question, I forgot to mention there was a Senate bill that was mentioned, Senate Bill 6, I believe, SB 6, and it says that state regulators are enforcing new rules that require data centers interconnecting after December 2025 to install technology that allows the grid operator to remotely curtail their power consumption during winter storms or summer grid emergencies. So what it's doing is that if we ever hit a point where we're running out of capacity, that the data center goes first, the people keep the power. Okay, so that's the idea here. So they're putting in these rules. That would be one guardrail for power that we're seeing. So I think that the legislators are trying to figure out how to do this, and we'll see, what sort of things they come up with. Here is a video that was done 2 weeks ago by CBS News Texas, and if you would like to go and check it out, you can find it pretty easy. It's only a few minutes long, so it's not a super long video, but you can see kind of the council and the meetings that people are having. And then you can see the Hood County once again rejects moratorium on the data centers. You can go read more about that here. So there is some follow-up. What we're going to do now is we're going to run out to the site. We're going to have a camera. We're going to shoot some video while we're on the road, and then we're going to do some drone footage of the actual location so you can see it. I think it would be helpful to do that. So you can see it on the map. You'll see kind of where it's at from a perspective. I don't know if anyone's actually driven out there before, so just following the line around and showing it to you might be something that is useful. And if you have any follow-up questions, I'm happy to chat with you. I'm happy to go and do some more research. So I've got here, let me go over a few of them with you. So this is going to be kind of some follow-up videos. Project Spectrums, Amazon AWS and Vistra. It's located on the Hood-Somerville County line adjacent to the Comanche Peak Power Plant. That's going to be one that's coming up next on the docket. Fort Spunky, Pacifico Energy Group, and then I believe there was one other. Got the one that we talked about on the Somerville one. So Fort Spunky is going to be the one that relates to pecan plantation. So I'm a pecan plantation resident. I live out here, so that's one that I'm particularly interested in as well. So I'm going to do a video on it, try to figure out where it's located and get the information on all that. If there's anything specifically you have questions about, there's a video you would like to be done, or there's some questions you've got about what's going on locally, I'd love to do the legwork for you and try to put it together in a convenient format like this. So without going any further, I hope you found this information helpful. I hope you enjoyed the content. Again, if you have any questions, we're a local real estate broker owner here in the city and would love to assist with anything if you have any needs. If we don't hear from you, hopefully we'll see you around Granbury sometime. All right, we're out here at the site for the proposed data center, 2,600 acres out here in Hood County. We're located in Tolar, Texas. We're on Paluxy Highway, and we came to the address. I showed it to you on the map. There's a couple of posters here. Protect the Paluxy Valley, say no to data centers and power plants in the Paluxy Valley. And then we also have another photo where you can see here. So this just shows you what the view will be in the future versus what it looks like now. So you can see that there is some pushback coming from those in the community, and it's going to definitely affect property values and people that want to live out here. We are very far tucked away. If I show you, there's a house up here at the top of the hill. If I am that homeowner, I want with all my heart for this thing not to come in, for sure, because it will affect his property values and his peace of mind and noise and all that stuff. So there are some concerns like that. I mentioned to you that there's also a few benefits of a data center, and also to reiterate, I'm not trying to take a side one way or the other. I'm just trying to present how things are going. And the considerations of the legislators and the people that are making decisions on this. So if you go back and look at like Midland, Odessa, the question would be, what was the benefits that they had for oil and gas coming in? Did it hurt some property values? Yeah. Did it bother some folks? Yeah. Did it have some health problems and mess up some stuff with their water? Yeah, it did all of those things, but it also stimulated the economy, brought in some revenue for tax purposes, improved their schools, improved businesses. It did a lot of things to improve the quality of life for a lot of the folks there as well. And so I don't know if anyone as concerned with some of these things, but here's a couple of things. If we want to see money to improve schools, if we want to see money to improve healthcare, if we want to see businesses and job opportunities come in where people that live here can begin to have higher wages and more opportunities like that, there has to be business investment. So this might be some historic opportunities for growth as well. Now, I think that if something like this comes in and depletes all of our water, then the values go down and there's not really civilization here anymore. So it could completely devastate the community. So this is not an argument for putting a data center in. It's more of what are people considering? How have other cities dealt with this? How have other eras dealt with their own versions of growth? And that's some of the considerations. I went through Leadership Granbury, and we met with some of the folks in the prisons. We're having to ship people out because our prisons are full and we can't afford to build a new one. I think there was some voting that was done on that. I think they actually approved a new one. But that's been something that's been very limited for 10 years or so in Hood County. And so that there's a lot of growth pressure, but there's not a lot of growth money to support that growing infrastructure. And I think there's possibilities that if done well, some of these data centers and stuff could also bring in a lot of money that will generate some positive things for the community as well as some negative things. The key is that we've got to make sure as a community that we point out the issues with the water and the power, especially because that could devastate the community if it's not properly accounted for. And that's going to be one of the things that a lot of the concerned citizens are going to focus on, and I agree with them. I really want there to be very good oversight, not only from the citizens, but also the government officials, people that are doing all the studies to really understand the water and power issue so that these data centers have guardrails and limitations put on what they can and can't do. I don't know what that looks like, but I think it's very important that people in positions do the due diligence. I think a 6-month moratorium, even though they said no, I think that was a very good idea to at least pump the brakes on this thing so that we can really understand what's going on. I think they are inevitable, but I also think that some limitations that you have to put on them to protect ourselves, that's also inevitable. So we really need to have that in place as well. So with that, I'm gonna go do some drone stuff. We're gonna go fly up, take a look at this area, and then I'm gonna give you some driving footage back into Tolar. And yeah, looking forward to it. So we're out riding, taking a look at the area. We're located on Biloxi Highway. Lots of rural farmland, as you can see. This is one of the areas in Hood County that still maintains a nice agricultural feel. This is somewhat at threat from the data centers, for sure. You hate to see, something like this go, but it is also something that we've seen before. Midland, Odessa was similar in some ways. Lots of signs out here about protect the Biloxi, so a lot of the locals here are invested in fighting this. And it's completely understandable. If I was an owner of one of these properties, I would hate to see a data center coming in. It's a way of life, probably going back several generations. Beautiful farmland there. Beautiful. So while I'm driving, just taking a look around and enjoying the scenery, and that this is something that people are fighting for. They're trying to keep this, and I don't blame them at all. I think with enough support, there's a potential that they could stop this particular data center from coming in. But to piggyback on something I said while we were at the office, the data centers are inevitable. I mean, they're coming. If it isn't this homeowner on this ranch, then it's going to be another homeowner on another ranch, or other homeowners that live around a ranch that are going to be impacted. Regardless of where you're at, there's going to be, especially if it's large, thousands of acres, there's going to be homeowners that are ranchers that have been going back generations. And if it's not this one, it's going to be another one. That's as cities develop and as, economies develop as ours have, it's a necessary aspect of growth. I'm not saying that means that we should lay down, accept defeat. We just need to know that we're just trying to push the data center further out from our city. There's also potential, that someone like Hood County, we might just not have the necessary infrastructure to support one of these things, and there might be some limitations. So data centers may have to focus on areas with less tapped aquifers. Maybe that's where we end up. And that might be where the legislature steps in and says, look, you got to have X amount of capacity in order to approve these. So it's just some considerations to look at. I would be very interested in seeing how they are factoring in all these considerations. I know that from the government standpoint, there's probably some national security things that people are saying, look, there's kind of like the arms race, the moon race. Right now, the economy that generates a robust AI is going to have significant advantages over the rest of the countries in the world, period. That just is what it is. I mean, and AI is going to be something that gives dominance to these economies if it doesn't deplete their resources beyond repair. That's going to be the balance. So anyway, I hope you found all this information helpful. By no means do I want to suggest that I am 100% for these data centers or 100% against them in general. I love the feel of Granbury as it is right now. I love the rolling hills and the ag. I love the farmers, and I love the way of life right now. So I hate to see that go, and I really want to try to maintain that in the city. With that said, I understand that, pipelines are going to come, power lines are going to come, cities are going to develop, roads are going to develop, 377 is going to expand, and businesses are going to come in, and there's just a natural progression of things as they go. And so I want to be realistic. I understand that there needs to be more money and investment coming into Granbury just to improve our healthcare system for the residents that are there, to improve the schools, and I know there's things like that as well. So my goal here is just to present everything in a helpful format. So I hope that nothing is taken out of context. I know that this is a sore subject, especially for people who live nearby this data center. They want me to come out and just hate them. I'm not taking that position either. It's just more of an objective, just evaluating things and giving information. If you would like more information on how you can fight the data centers, reach out to us. We'll get you in contact with some groups and organizations that are doing just that, and we would be glad to send your help their way. And if you are by chance in the legislature of Granbury, Hood County, I would love to chat with you. Absolutely love to chat with you, so that I could better understand what all is going on behind the scenes, and maybe get some information that most people don't see that might shed some more light onto this. I am by no means an expert. I'm a real estate guy, but in real estate, what's going on locally is very important. It changes, people's plans. They may be wanting to sell a home to get away from a data center, or maybe they want to know where the data center is so that they can, they may be planning to retire and move here, and so they want to know where do they need to try to stay away from. So that's my area of expertise, and that's what I'm trying to provide as far as information to clients or people that live here in the community. All right, hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.